beta this weekend. Play the open beta this weekend. Play the open beta this weekend.
Yeesh. Yeesh. Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for joining. I'm just gonna check the audio. Thanks for joining. And the streaming, so it might the audio double, triple, quadruple stream a little bit. Okay, cool. You can hear me. Sweet. Alright, I'm on this Restream chat. Sweet. Alright, I'm on this Restream chat. Sweet. So I can see your comments from YouTube and from YouTube. There, that's better. I can see your comments from YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and all that. So let's start off with a little background. My name is Aiman Akhtar. I'm a 3D artist in Los Angeles, and I've been here for about 5 years. And I've been doing a lot of 3D printing. So that's kind of what I like to talk about in my streams, is 3D printing ideas to reality. Because you can basically do 3D to be an artist for entertainment, advertising, VFX, toys, animation, medical, and another thing you can do is make your own ideas become reality. So I like to talk about that stuff because I've been working on my own IP and developing that for quite a while now. So if you're interested in more of my work, you can go to aiman3d.com and you can see all the print stuff there. Give this a second. Don't know why it's lagging. Alright, so I have to update it, but there's a lot of different 3D print projects that I've done, concept artwork, toys, yeah, all sorts of stuff on there. Another project of mine is Fungisaurs. This is the IP that I was talking about that I've been developing, little dinosaur mushroom characters, and the story surrounding their creation and their proliferation. So this is one of my characters, another one. And I'll be doing a little bit of development on this stuff today. So if you want to follow Fungisaurs, you can follow us on Fungisaurs on Instagram. And we share a lot of all sorts of content. You know, when we hit the different expos and making our animation pitch, you can kind of see how it's going, how the development goes for something original. So that's Fungisaurs. And let's see. What's the IP? So IP means intellectual property. That means something that is a series of stories and stuff that you want to develop that's original. So for Fungisaurs, I've been developing all sorts of cool stuff. We've made the toy line that we did a Kickstarter for. We're developing a game right now, like augmented reality, and then we're working on an animated series pitch. So yeah, that's all the stuff that's been going on. Adrian Wader saying, cheap DIY printer not give that result. Yeah, it really depends. We can talk a little bit about printers. I think what I should do is start off with where we left off last week in my stream. This is what I did in last week's stream. This is a mask of Hector from Coco. I don't know how many of you saw that movie, Coco, but I really liked it, and my friend Sean wanted a mask for Halloween. So I came up with this little character. You can see those holes are there for, you know, you to breathe through as your nose would go into place. There's the scan. So this is built to proportion to a scan of my own head. I think it'll fit Sean, but this is kind of how I go about it. So if you're interested in watching this one and see how I made it, you can go to Presenters at Pixelogic. So just type in Pixelogic Presenters and this will come up. You can scroll down to my name, Aiman Akhtar, and then you can see some of my work here. Like here's the Fungisaurus toys, available now at fungisaurus.com, mystery box style. And then a dress that I made for 3D World magazine, so 3D printing for wearables, and then all sorts of various toy prototyping I do with my own company, 3D Smiths. And here's all the videos. So this was episode 47, so you can see all the past videos. I worked on some IP stuff, some Magic Wheelchair projects, some stuff from Forum Labs, mask for my dog Kuma, articulation. I did quite a bit of articulation recently, even released my own articulation IMM brush. So if you're interested, you can check out that stuff. And Hector Coco mask development is all there as well. So yeah, going back to ZBrush. So what exactly did I do there is I basically sculpted this mask on top of a scan of my face. And so I know it's going to fit. And I did a little bit of engineering. So not a ton of engineering, but you can see the holes here along the side for an elastic ribbon kind of band to go through. And the jaw pops off. So it's keyed into place. And so you can key these multiple parts so you can print them individually and you don't have to worry about complex prints. Like if I had tried to print this in one go, it would have been a bit challenging because of that gap between the teeth right there. Like I wouldn't have been able to find a good orientation. Actually, let me show you how I did actually orient them. I'll open up the software I use called Idea Maker, and this is the software that comes with the Raise 3D N2 Plus. That's the printer you might see in the little window to my right here. Is this big guy right here. You go open an idea file, and you can see how I set up the various parts to print, and then I'll show you the prints. And then we'll go on with today's stream. So this is the top part, the skull. And I don't need this many supports. I just like to overdo it with supports. So I know it'll come out good in one go. And I oriented it with a lot of the supports on the surface of the face because for FDM 3D printing, I haven't noticed much of a difference. For SLA 3D printing, the resin 3D printing stuff, I always try to add supports on the back or somewhere you won't see. But for this kind of thing, I think it worked pretty well. So I'll show you this print, and then another print I did was the jaw. And you can see how the jaw is oriented facing upwards. It just made more sense, like gravity-wise, it's going to build it up slowly. And what does it look like when it builds? We can do a quick slice and then take a look. Alright, so let's preview that slice. And this is how the 3D print would look. You can see all the build lines as it's going to build up bit by bit by bit. I'm sure it creates a fun pattern on some of your monitors. But this gives you a really good preview idea of how it's going to work. It's not the finest resolution printer. It's FDM, which is basically a glorified glue gun attached to an XYZ rotors. But it's really cheap to prototype, and you can make some really cool stuff. So I always recommend people start with FDM 3D printing just until they get past the hobbyist stage and it becomes kind of more of a professional thing you want to do. Alright, so let me show you these prints. Pop over to Restream. Make sure you guys don't have any questions about the process so far. What size the model and printer would be good for a life-size face? I don't really know what the minimums would be, but for like my face is, you know, pretty normal size, I'd say. You want a printer that can print at least 10 inches cubed. My printer, the Raise 3D N2 Plus, can print 12 by 12 by 24 inches. So let's pop on over here and actually put some music on. Alright, so I got some ambient music playing in the background. If it gets too loud, let me know, and I'll turn it down. I'm just going to go over to my printer and show you a couple of the prints. I know, really far. But this is the printer, the Raise 3D N2 Plus. You can see it's relatively big, 12 by 12 by 24 inch build volume. The skull's in there, so I'll show you how to take that off, and then this is the jaw. So first, stabilize this camera. And come over here. I'll turn off autofocus once it's focused on this. And now you can see what the print is looking like. So it came out pretty clean. the supports in FDM 3D printing don't really stay on, so it's really easy for me to just crack them off. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Just remove these supports. And then this is the support raft. So all supports are generated on top of a raft. You can kind of peel that off as well. And you can use better tools for this, but I'm just using my hands. Okay, there we go. So there's the jaw print. Kind of see that it fits on. Come closer now. Right there. I'm messing with my stash though. All right, so there's the jaw. Let's see the sculpt print and see if it fits into place. And then we can do like a bit of additional sanding over here if we want to really, clean it up and then paint it. I'm going to unhook the mic for a second because it's going to be a bit hard for me to reach without that. And I'm going to use just something simple like a modeling clipper here in order to pry the print off the print bed. So I'm just really going to do this and stick it and basically pivot a bit, leverage it off. Okay, so here's the print of the skull, and I can start now removing all of the supports for this as well, so we can see how this fits into the jaw. Actually, you know what, I could probably do that right now because the jaw part, the key is available, so I can just stick this here and then see how it fits. And so we know that this is successful, this works. Now this isn't a functioning jaw. This basically just keys into place and it's static, so it doesn't actually move. We could take this a step further and make this jaw functional. And my friend Sean's going to come by hopefully tonight, and then we'll see if it fits on his face, and then see about making the bottom jaw functional. He can attach it to his face via some sort of prosthetic putty, so every time he moves his jaw, we could do something like that, or stitch it onto like a balaclava or something. And so I'll do a different jaw print, so we'll have two different jaw prints if we go that route. But in any case, I'm going to remove these supports, and you can see like none of this really existed, what, 2 weeks ago? Last week even. I printed all of this over the past 2 days. This top part took about 30 hours, maybe like 25-ish. And this bottom part took about, I don't know, 7, 8 hours maybe. Just material, a lot less material. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm watching the chat log so I can try to respond. I'm just going to peel this stuff for a second. Sometimes it comes off quick and easy. Sometimes there's a lot of support, so I have to play the accordion. There we go. Got most of the supports off now. Just the top of the head. There we go. Okay. So there's the Hector Coco mask now with all the supports off. And you can see it holds up pretty well. Creator of Worlds on Twitch is saying more fun to play with than bubble wrap. Kind of is, yeah. Alright, so you can see if I stick it on my face, it fits. Now the lighting might not be perfect, but actually this is good enough as a Halloween costume on its own because you can still move your own jaw. But yeah, so there you go. And then if I put the elastic bands through here, it should be able to fit onto my head. And nose fits into place really well. Even though this part is closed, I can breathe through it because there's a whole bunch of holes in there. I don't know if you can see those. So I've sculpted those into the model. Teeth are all mostly individual. They look good. And this will require minimal sanding before moving on to paint. Life-size Dolls on YouTube is saying, how much did your printer cost? The Raise 3D N2 Plus over here is about $3,500 US, and that's the same price as about like a Formlabs Form 2. That's the other printer that I have. So I have two Form 2s and I have this Raise 3D N2 Plus. I don't know if I'm gonna get a Form 3 or if I want to get the Form 3 Plus, the really big one, because that'll allow me to print in resin big. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. I will probably end up getting a Form 3 sooner or later, though. I really like that company and I like their printers. They're really high quality and they give you a lot of customer support, which is really important when you're learning how to get into 3D printing. So anyways, there's the Hector mask that I sculpted in last week's Zbrush stream. So I tend to do that. If you were following my stream, you'll see me sculpt something in Zbrush and then you'll see it 3D printed out and the final result. So I'll show this mask when it's fully painted eventually in one of the later streams, but yeah, there you go. Alright. What will I use to color this material? So you can do any kind of acrylic paints, you can do oil if you really want to. Watercolor won't work, but at least acrylic. So model color, Vallejo paints, or you could spray paint. With like Tamiya or any kind of primer. So yeah, that's what I use. Okay, so yeah, that's this mask, and I'm going to move on now to the rest of the stream, unless anyone has any question. What I like is that this got turned into this, and that's what the power of 3D printing is to me, is that this didn't exist and now it does, just kind of from my imagination. So what I encourage people to do is just make their own stuff, whatever the heck it is. Whether it's like costume, cosplay, prop pieces, or something more interesting for you, something that you could build on, like the toy line and game and animation series that I'm trying to build. All kind of has happened because of my ability to do 3D printing and put pitch materials on a table in front of people. So I'll talk a little bit about that today and just kind of get more into my Fungisaur's IP stuff because that's what I want to work on today. So yeah, this is PLA Hatchbox 3D printer filament, white. I like this company, Hatchbox. It's a little bit more expensive for the filament than like say Amazon Basics filament, but it works really well and I don't have as many failures, so I like that. So I'm gonna put this stuff away. Now, all of this material that was used for supports is inherently waste now. So there's nothing to do about this. And that kind of bugs me because the more I'm on this planet, the more environmentally conscious I am, the more I worry about my footprint. So I don't like to dump this stuff. I basically just keep bags of this and I feel like I'll repurpose it some way, somehow. I don't know how, but I've got like bags full of like this kind of support material PLA. Because I don't know if it's recyclable, you know? I want to do something with it, maybe like eventually do an art installation or something. I'm going to pick up all of this PLA support and put it in the bag. Bag of recent support material. In goes all of this new chunk. Creative World saying it would be nice if the manufacturer could recycle it if you return the waste to them and they give you credit towards your next purchase. That would be dope. I mean, I want material scientists to keep working on this problem, and I believe we'll have a solution within next 5 years, because in theory, you should be able to grind this back up into powder or turn it back into another spool of PLA, kind of like refurbished PLA or something, you know? There we go. So there are already some open source filament makers that grind and melt PLA and turn it into filament. So yeah, there you go. It exists already. I just need to do more research. If someone knows someone good who does this already, just type it in the chat and I'll check them out. All right, so put this aside. Like, the thing is, 3D printing is such a new technology, you have to take the bad with the good. So it's like, yeah, I mean, sooner or later, I really want to address this problem. All right, next question is from Life Size Dolls on YouTube. What is the best way to get a human face into ZBrush for life-size printing? I'd say get a scan of your face done. You can get a scan of your face done at various companies that have different types of scanners. 3D MD is the scan that I got. And there's like Artex scanners like the Spider. Even if you get like a iPhone or like an iPad structure sensor scan, it's better than nothing, because then you have proportion to build on top of, and then it'll be life size. So that really helps, because once you have it, now you can always build on it, you know? Grim Reaper, did you see my earlier question? What was your earlier question? Let's see. Scrolling up, scrolling up. Loving the prints. Watch your articulation video. Good stuff. If you would ever tackle how to create a ratchet joint insert brush to add your joints. Ratchet joint. I'm not really sure what a ratchet joint is. Let me do some quick Googling. So for those that aren't familiar, what Grim is talking about at the Twitch chat, I released a brush recently. I can show you guys that. And then we'll move on. I'm going to shrink this window for a second. Okay, let's go to the actual link. I think that's it, gumroad.co/keysart. Preview. So I think that's the link. Let's confirm that. Yep, that's it. Okay, so what this does is it's an IMM brush which lets you articulate your character, so you can create a hinge joint, a ball joint, different type of tapered joints, snap-in pin. So I can share that link on the Restream chat if you guys want to play with this in ZBrush. But yeah, so what Grim was saying is I should add another joint to this called a ratchet joint. So let me look up what a ratchet joint is, because I probably know it in a different name. Alright, so it looks like it's a pretty simple joint that lets you kind of have a pivot. In theory, this works pretty functionally like the hinge joint that I've got in there. It basically does the same kind of thing, but it's a slightly different construction. It looks like it's a lot more for mechanical parts, not so much like humanish characters. And that's kind of what I tend to focus on, is like I've got a background as a character artist, so I focus more on characters. But something like this actually might be doable if I come up with the Articulation Brush 2.0. So I'll drop it in my ideas. Where'd it go? There. So thank you. Okay. What is up? All right, so there's a few things I wanted to announce. Is ZBrush Summit. I'll be there. So you guys should also come if you're here in LA. That is going to be this coming weekend, I believe. So it's coming up quick. Not this weekend, next weekend. So there's the ZBrush Live Sculpt Off also going on. So if you're interested, watch the Sculpt Off. That's going to be on Thursday. And let's go to, it's free registration. If you come, you'll meet all of these cool artists, and that's my head right there in the back, but I didn't have green hair. But yeah, there's all these awesome people attending, and I think you'll have a great time. It's free, so just register and show up. When does the ZBrush Summit happen? It is Saturday, September 28th and Sunday, September 29th. And I believe the Sculpt Off is on Thursday. Yeah, so it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the Sculpt Off is on Thursday, so you can watch it live. It's not open to the public, so don't come on Thursday, but it's really fun to see all of these awesome ZBrush artists doing the same prompts like live. So if you're going to be around, I'll be there. Alright, so that was my announcement about the ZBrush Summit. What else? What else? Nothing. I feel like sculpting, so let's just jump into sculpting. Unless anyone else has any questions. Check that Restream chat. Creative Worlds is saying gonna be there. Sweet. Yeah, hope we do cross paths there. Let me know that you saw my stream and that, you know, meeting me in person. I love seeing people that I've interacted with online here. I know it's coming up so quick. Winston Eakins, yeah. All right, dope, cool. So I'm gonna put this aside. So I've got the Restream chat window open on my other screen. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. This character that you see on the background right now is one of the first human characters from my Fungisaur's IP. So far, I've been focusing on the creature development and trying to figure out their biology and backstory. But now I'm starting to get to a point where I have the human characters that'll be kind of chasing these Fungisaurs around the world wherever they end up. So this is one of the first characters. Her name is Nish, a girl from South Asia, because I feel we could use more South Asian representation in animation. And she's a climber, so that's where you see she's got like the belay loop and device on. And there's one of my little Fungisaurs in her climbing pouch. So that's the premise of one of the first like short animations that I'm doing, is that this character sees this pouch and like, hey, that looks like me, and jumps in unbeknownst to our human character, and then hilarity ensues. So I have done this print for Lightbox Animation Expo that just happened. So I'll try to zoom in and show you. Let's get this focused on here. So it's having a little bit of trouble focusing. Let me get out of the way and let it autofocus on this. There's like too much stuff in the background for it to autofocus, but this might be better anyway, so you can get an idea of it in my hand. Like, this is about a good size for a pitch maquette. So this is not a toy that I'm going to make publicly available to buy or anything, but this is to pitch my animated series. I can sculpt this in ZBrush, 3D print it out, assemble it in pieces, so it's not all put together. You can see there the back of this scarf head wrap thing comes off, and you can fit it right into the character. So you can make it in multiple pieces. Hold on, put it back in. And assemble it and get it painted. So this was painted by my painter friend Elvin Rodriguez. He did all the Fungisaur's painting as well. Awesome painter, just got a job at Gentle Giant, so I'm super happy for him. And take this into your like pitch meetings. Like I'm trying to set up a meeting with Netflix, and I'm hoping if I take this along with the toys in the game and I show them like this world, my vision isn't something that's spoken, it's something that I can put in front of people and be like, this is what I want to make. And hopefully that'll happen. One day you'll see the Fungisaurs on the big screen. But this is the first pitch maquette that I made for Fungisaurs for a human character. So I'm pretty stoked about how it turned out. And almost got it perfect. You can see if it autofocuses, this little character's arm broke off. So I'm probably going to have to print a little new one. And even now, like having done over 100 different types of 3D prints, I still make little mistakes like that, where it's like there just wasn't enough. It was too much of an overhang. So once you pack this up and then ship it from place to place, that little arm broke off. So I might update that. But aside from that, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. And let's see, give me a sec. Okay, so you see this character right here, and you see how small that little creature is. It's called a paradox. It's a Parasaurolophus mixed with a Amanita muscaria, or like a Mario mushroom. And here's like another set. This is the scale of the toys. So the mystery box toys are about this size, and then I'm hang out here with you. And then they keep getting bigger. So eventually in the animation, you'll see that the characters are even bigger than this. So that's the kind of IP that I'm developing here. All copyright, so please don't try to steal it. But I'm doing it through the power of 3D printing and kind of making my ideas real through this process. And you guys are along to see the ride here on ZBrush Live. Today what I'll be doing is a bit of development for this IP. What I've got in mind is, let me show you actually. It's always better to show than to just talk about it. And put this aside. All right. So one way that I've been showing off these characters is this backpack. And so I came up with this idea, well, my wife did. She's the co-creator and creative director for Fungisaur's project. And maybe you'll see a bit of screen reflection, but all the Fungisaurs are here in kind of a terrarium. And this is a backpack for cats. I just outfitted it like this and arted it out, and has the flyer, so when I walk around expos, people can see the product and take their own flyers, kind of self-serve style. But what I want to do is come up with this kind of thing just digitally. So when you open the site, like that's the first thing you see. So there, that might be a bit easier to see. So there's the characters in their little habitats. And so this is what I want to do now, is create a digital version of this. There's actually a contest going on right now on Sketchfab for mushrooms, so it's like, Destiny's calling me to make this thing. I don't know if I'll have time to finish before September, but what I want to do is create a little bit of landscape today. So that's what I'll be doing in ZBrush. I'll be sculpting landscape for these characters to stand on, and then I don't know if we'll 3D print it out, but we will at least try to see it in VR, AR, Sketchfab land. So that's the basic idea for what I'll be doing in today's stream, and let's get to it. Pop open in ZBrush, and let me see if you all have any other questions on Restream. Okay, thank you, Rod, for calling me an inspiration. Let's see, Creative World saying what a badass portfolio presentation. I hope it is, but I don't know. I haven't done it yet. There's a limited number of chances you get to meet with these execs and get in front of them, so I just want to have the most well put together pitch ever when I get in front of them, So yeah, like I feel like if I'm transitioning from being kind of just a straight up sculptor and production artist to being a producer or executive producer or showrunner for an animated series, it's a big step up. So for them to trust me in that kind of step, I just want to prove to them, no, all of this stuff is possible and I can make it. And that's kind of what I'm using 3D printing for. 3D printing is just a tool for me to showcase my talent and potential, so to speak, All right. Life-size dolls on YouTube says, what 3D printing services would you recommend for getting started until I get my own printer? I really like Shapeways. It's effective, it's cheap. They're local in New York, so they can ship in America. If you're in Europe, there's another company. Why am I blanking on their name right now? Hold on. I'll Google it and I'll find it. But Shapeways is solid. I used them for a year or almost 2 years when I didn't have my own 3D printers. And I stopped using them more recently, but they can still do a lot of things that I can't. So, all right. So looking at 3D printing service, 3D Hubs is another one. Shapeways is another one. Sculpteo, that's the one. So Sculpteo, Sculpteo, I believe is the one that's based in Europe. So you can order stuff from them, and they have a wide range of materials, so you can try out a whole bunch of different stuff. I believe they're the ones. There's other ones too. But I'd say Shapeways is the biggest. So that's Shapeways. They've got the new carbon 3D printers. They have color printers through the Stratasys J750. The Mimakis, I believe they've got color printers of too. And they can print all sorts of different materials. I recommend getting your own 3D printer, even if it's a cheap, like $300 DIY one, just so you can prototype and iterate and get the hang of it. It'll take a while to get engineering. How, a 3D model doesn't need to be, good and engineered well. It can be its own thing. If it's going to go to a game or like, animation, you don't need to worry about balance and structure and basics, things like that. But when you're 3D printing, you need to learn all that stuff. I guess this is a good time to plug my class. If you're interested in learning everything I know about 3D printing, you can get it for $200, 8 lessons on Mold 3D Academy. And you learn about 3D printing in different scales. You learn about articulation, keying, slicing, jewelry, miniatures, wearables. Pretty much everything I can think of, I put it into the class. And yeah, it's a good deal right now. You can see all of my student work here. So I'm going to drop a link to that in the Restream chat as well. Print class. Okay. MakerBot is a good, solid printer to start with. The company's gone through some stuff, but their printers are still solid. There's a lot of cheaper ones than MakerBot that do almost the same thing as MakerBot, so look into those as well. What kind of paint do you use? It's the same thing I said before. It's the, I can show it here actually. Not closing that. Model color paints. So it's a paint set that you can get for acrylics, and they come in like these little tubes that you can squeeze out onto a palette and then paint only the area you want. So pretty common way of printing and painting all sorts of different statues. Model color paints or Vallejo paints, V-A-L-L-E-J-O. They're also called Game Color. So solid brands. I've got a bunch of these at home. All right, so keep your questions coming. I'm going to swing over to ZBrush now and start sculpting. Another question on Twitch. What printer do you have? I have the Raise 3D N2 Plus, which is, I think they have a new version now, like a Pro Plus or something. But that's basically it. So it's a relatively big one, but that's what I liked. I like the ability to print big and make costumes and props or large scale, whatever I want. There you can see like in perspective scale. And then the other printer I have is the Formlabs Form 2. We've got 2 of those. And this is the printer that allows me to do the high detail resin stuff for client work and toy prototyping and stuff I'll do on here. Just because there's almost no build lines. The stuff is super clean. You just have to clean up supports, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But I've heard the Form 3 supports come off a lot easier. from my experience they have. They're sending me a print now so I can really see. But yeah, those are the two printers I have. Okay, let's get this started. Drop that there, drop that there. I'm going to shrink this window down a bit because you don't need to see my pretty face so much. And switch some stuff around. So right now what I'm doing is I've got all these characters that I've got the low-res topology set up for, and that's what's being used in my augmented reality app that I'm developing. And what I need to do is I've got the Maya files all set up where I've got them rigged and animated, or going to be animated. So you can see some of the Maya rig here. Character moving a little bit here and there. So what I want to do right now is maybe come up with a pose for one of these characters and start on the environment that they'll be floating around in. Oh, I forgot to show you the most important thing. Let's see. So Sketchfab's September challenge is mushrooms. So they basically got a contest going on till the end of September. So till September 30th, you can create your mushroom character and then upload it to Sketchfab. And I'm kind of geeking out about how cool Sketchfab looks and how awesome of a presentation it will be for my Fungisaurs. So I'm thinking I might do something like this, like come up with a little stylized environment and just have my characters kind of floating around in it so people can see them digitally on their screen and really see the vision. Like ultimately, Hollywood producers and TV execs are very risk averse, so they don't green light anything unless they can really see the potential in it. So I kind of want to put it all right there in front of them. And so this might be a really good way for me to do that. So though my shtick is usually 3D printing ideas to reality, right now I'm going to do VR, AR ideas to reality. Okay, so I'll pose this character and take him into, I think it'll be cooler if they're actually moving a bit too. Like if they're animated in the Sketchfab scene, like doing something like this. Or something like this. Or maybe he's just doing this, like tapping his foot. So I don't know. I'm not going to play around in Maya so much. I want to get started sculpting in ZBrush. I can use this character as a reference to kind of keep him in place and know the scale of the world I want to build. So that's what I'll do. Just go to the sphere 3D, make it a poly mesh so I can start sculpting on it, and I'll append on one of these characters. Click on it. Alright, so there's the character. And so now I know the scale for what I'll be building. And I can start just by pushing and pulling. That's what I like about ZBrush, is you don't need to have a lot of setup time. You can just get cranking. So I need to think about the overall shape of the structure that I'm creating, and then after that I can get into detailing. So there's about 8 different Fungisaurs in my first mystery box series, and so how am I going to put all 8 of them into one shot? And I like the backpack. I know it works really well, and I've got a great model for it, so I'm going to just use that as reference. So looking at my backpack here, I've got a kind of a ground plane, which is the bottom, in which it's mostly just kind of grass and stuff. And then I've got a middle plane and then a top plane. So that's what I'll do, is I'll create like these 3 different planes to put the characters on. And you'll mostly just see me use the move brush to start doing this. If it doesn't make sense just yet, that's alright. Hopefully will at the end. I'm also going to turn on my, maybe go to Snake Hook and turn on this little Activate Sculptors Pro button. And that way I can kind of push and pull stuff out of my mesh, and it'll kind of auto-update the topology on the fly. Just to inflate, just kind of inflate the stuff together. I can Dynamesh at different points if I want to. So I'll go to Geometry, Dynamesh, make sure this is on, and keep the resolution super low for now. Because I don't really care about the resolution just yet. It's about just the shapes. Switch again to my Snake Hook for quick movement. Model Studios on Twitch saying it's kind of amazing how many different avenues you can go with 3D. Like if you're an accountant, that's all you do is accounting. I kind of get what you mean. And it's not just 3D, it's even 2D now. And art in general, you know, VR, whatever the new craze is going to be. Artists are going to have to constantly keep evolving and being multitaskers and multi-type of creators. You can't just get comfortable and complacent with just, you know, a few tidbits. I think that there's a big threat to 2D artists coming right now, in fact, with the new AI-enabled art software. Has anyone heard of Art Breeder or GAN Breeder? It's a new site that lets you kind of create concept art with just a few different images. So you can make any type of face that you want and any type of landscape that you want in 2D, which inherently it replaces the jobs of a ton of like people art-wise, you know. So it's really scary stuff, but it's not that scary. It's kind of the same thing as what 3D scanning did for 3D modelers. Like, I lost a bunch of work when 3D scanning became more common, but then again, I was kind of happy that I didn't have to do a lot of those kinds of projects that I got hired on to do a lot earlier on, like sculpt shampoo bottles and razors and detailed heads, which you might as well get scans for, you know? So 2D art is going to need to learn to adapt as well. What I say is, why build for other people when you can build stuff for yourself most of the time? So I think a lot of artists need to kind of learn to get out of their shell, learn a bit about marketing. I know it's a dirty word. We hate to do marketing, but we got to learn to market our own skills in order for us to do the kinds of projects that we want to. Like, I'm full-time on Fungisaurs for the past 3 months, and that's been dope. I'm just using the damp standard brush right now to kind of lay in some lines. It's still really early stages of blocking, like I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I like to break my surface up. So I'm going to switch to some of these different alphas and do some quick breaking up of the surface. because I want it to feel like rocks. Okay. I'm still making like large, big changes still. Okay, got some more questions. What material are you printing with? James Mallard asks on YouTube. It depends. If I'm printing high resolution stuff, it's resin, and I use clear resin, you know, gray resins, all sorts of different resins. And if I'm printing FDM, I use PLA, plastic. Caitlin Sculpts, thanks for joining. Asking how our Fungisaur is going. It's going well. We've been developing on the app full time now, and so that's fun to be making my own little mobile game. Hopefully you guys will all support me when it comes out. I'm hoping by February, but we'll see. And yeah, right now just working on all the pitch materials for an animated series. Take it to Netflix, Amazon, really anyone who'll meet with me. I'm going to go meet with them once all materials are ready. So I'm flattening the bottom right now just because I wanted to kind of think about it kind of like a plane. And I still want to have a lot of this stuff feel a lot more closer together. So I'm going to keep moving this stuff around until I'm happy with it. The concept art thing, people are asking, what is it called? It's called Art Breeder or Gan Breeder. I can kind of show you some cool, quick stuff because I'm already on their site. I've been watching a lot of the cool stuff. What it inherently lets you do is just mix any two images to create a new image. And so you can mix up to 4 or 5 different images and come up with really insane stuff. Hold on. Let's navigate over to some stuff. My friend Bay was doing some crazy experiments with it recently. So there's you can kind of see a video of it in action. It's crazy, isn't it? Just by a few sliders here and there, you can adjust and create new characters, new faces. Here's another experiment. And this one is kind of insane. Let's see if I can, I really want to see that like full screen. But there's literally a slider for gender, for adding glasses, for making it more concept arty, which is just insane to me. And it's all based on the images that you input. So you could input just a bunch of random artwork that you find, or you could input your own art and create something new entirely. So yeah, Art Breeder, or Gan Breeder, Art Breeder, whatever. That's the site. Creative World's asking if I have my own channel that I stream. Nope, I only stream on Zbrush just because I'm still getting used to the hang of streaming, so I don't want to overdo it too much. And then no Patreon yet, but if you do want to support me, you can go buy some Fungisaurs on fungisaurs.com. Alright, so what I'm doing now is going in with my clay tubes brush and adding more volume where I want volume. Kind of want to make this feel more like a rocky ledge, just so I can have different places to place these different characters. So there's one. Another one can go right there. Another one can go back there. Just trying to think about the placement as I do this, you know. And then it is supposed to be rock, so I want to do quite a bit of unevenness. Just going in with the move brush to do that, or there's many different ways to create unevenness. Still a bit too symmetrical, so I want to see how I can change that. Let's drop a different material on there. See if we've got any rock-like materials. Adding a bit of texture here and there. You can dynamesh it at a higher resolution. What's this saying? Auto masking is on. Okay. Auto masking off. Okay, there we go. And it's still saying auto maskings is on, even though I... Okay, there you go. I did it that time. I just needed to switch brush for some reason. It wouldn't let me do the thing. Alright, so just breaking up the surface here a bit more. And I can break it up with like a bigger brush too. And I can switch different alphas. Z add to Z sub. Sculpting terrain in ZBrush is really quick and powerful. Really wish it would stop giving me the auto maskings warning. Yes, I get it. You have an auto masking thing. God. Obnoxious. Questions. Let's see. Do I have backface masking on? I do have backface masking on, but it shouldn't really stay on after I've turned it off, you know? Like every time I switch to a brush, I'm checking. But backface masking shouldn't affect it so much still. Yeah, I guess it does. It's crazy. Thank you for letting me know that. Bottle Studios, what Cintiq do you have? I have the 22 HD and cannot map buttons to ZBrush. I can map buttons for all other programs, but ZBrush specific, the Wacom this app doesn't seem to want to work. I have the 27 HD, Wacom 27 HD, and I like it a lot. It's effective. It's I don't really use the side button just because I have stuff mapped to the keyboard. So that's kind of what I tend to use. But yeah, it's got all that stuff. So I don't know. It's a good question. I don't really know if there's a way to map buttons for ZBrush, but I'm sure there is. Like maybe something to ask Joseph Drust in his Ask ZBrush sessions that he does. Alright, so now I'm going to come in just with the damn standard brush and try to create various different types of rocky ledges. So I want this to feel a lot more uneven than it is right now. So I'm just holding my Alt key as I come in and creating different types of structure. That'll hopefully make it feel a lot more rocky. It already is. It's fun to do some environment sculpting. I don't do it often enough. I focus so much on characters a lot of the times. But to me, characters are really the lifeblood of storytelling, and that's what I want to do ultimately, I think, is become a storyteller. We're a better storyteller. We're all storytellers. Technically, Chase Bank is a storyteller. It's like their main thing to do is storytelling. That's what will get people to trust them. The good thing about ZBrush is I don't feel like I have to be precious, and I don't feel like I have to care about every single stroke, at least in this starting stage, you know? When I kind of have a better idea of what I want with this, I might, but not just yet. If there's any one lesson I can impart to you is just don't be precious with your artwork. Just make. Make freely, make as much as you can. Time is not on our side. Anyone see the new Dark Crystal? The Jim Henson series? Freaking loved it, man. It was so dark. Like it went there like right away. Like in episode 1 it went there. Because people worry like kids will not be able to take like death and darkness, and like, you know, they can. They should. We worry way too much about protecting kids and protecting humans now in general. College kids are super politically correct from just the reality of life. Death is one of those realities. I don't know. I'm super morbid, so I love to think and talk about these kinds of things. I appreciate you all joining, and hopefully you can learn something from my ZBrush workflows. So far, it's been primarily a lot of dam standard, clay tubes, a little bit of smooth brush here and there. And I'm not seeing the shapes I want just yet. That's fine. I'm going to coax them out. Adrian Wader saying, I like the music. Thank you. This music is brought to you by an app here called Pretzel, Pretzel, and it's great for just background music while you work, and also it's great for streaming because all of this music is royalty free. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna save this. It's been too long since I saved and it's making me nervous. All right, great question on YouTube from Life Size Dolls. How much do your Fungisaurs cost to make compared to what they cost to buy? So, for those of you interested in the toy industry, it's pretty competitive right now. It's really hard for independents to break in. So I'll show you a little bit of what I've learned. It's very old school as an industry. It's still a lot of just old establishment people. The same people that ran Toys R Us into the ground are still in charge of everything. So my Fungisaurs you can buy at fungisaurs.com, and there's a link that takes you to fungisaurs.myshopify. And they're all mystery box toys, so you don't know which one of these 8 characters you're going to get. And I've got enamel pins and stickers. And hopefully we'll have a lot more different kinds of products in the future as the brand develops and grows. We're just now starting to find like the voice of the brand. We're working on this for 2 years now, and now we're figuring out, what we're about. But the toys are about $11.99 or $12 per toy. And what you get with that is just one mystery box toy. So you don't know which one it is. But what is cool is we're developing an augmented reality app. So whichever toy you get to bring it to life in augmented reality. It's one of these characters, so you don't know which one it'll be. That's a Braco. Then that's a Paradox. See, this one's a C-Rex. Chanterelle mushroom and a T-Rex, so a C-Rex is what we came up with. This one's one of the crowd favorites, a Salamander. The turkey tail mushroom on the back of Dimetrodon. So the question that was asked by Life Size Dolls is how much do the Fungisaurs cost compared to what they cost to buy? So I'm selling them for $12. They're about 3-inch size toys, and I had to make an order of 16,000 toys in order to be able to mass produce them. So we did a Kickstarter, raise funds, and put our own money and friend and family money to just do the production. The toys, after all of that, we're selling for originally 15, and then we brought the price down to 12. Probably will eventually bring it down to 10. But how it works is, if I sell it for 12, I'm only getting about $6 because this first run cost me about $4 per toy to make. If I do the same toy run production again, the next time around it might be like $3. But each individual toy, if I sell it as it is on my website, minus shipping and tax and stuff, I get about $5 or so per toy sale. Now, if I try to go retail with this stuff, meaning I don't sell it just on my website, I sell it on Amazon, if I sell it in different toy stores, which is really how mystery box toys are meant to be sold. When we go retail, which we're planning on doing when the app actually goes live, I need to sell it to the store owners at wholesale price, which is generally half off. If I sell it through a distributor, it's another 10 to 20% gets subtracted that way. But if it's half off right off the bat, if I'm selling the toys for 10 bucks, then I have to sell it for 5, which means it's basically I get $1 out of it. And if I, sell it through a distributor, basically I get not even $1. It's like half of $1. So that's why it's really important to price your toys high enough that you can still make a profit. So I think I'll keep them at $12 for the foreseeable future until we go mass retail, and then I can afford to make a lot more toys. So yeah, hope that answered your question. Can you animate your character in ZBrush? Yes, but I prefer to animate in Maya because you can do much more complex rigs. What ways can you tell stories in 3D besides animation? I mean, each sculpture or statue tells its own story. If you can, even an image can tell a story if you can really nail down the voice of the characters and do the interactions well. So I don't really know what you mean by that. There's VR stories that can come in the future. So all sorts of stuff is possible now that wasn't possible just 5 years ago. Stickers and emojis in like all of these apps like Line and WhatsApp. You've got also, what is that other big stuff? The AR masks that you can put on, like with Facebook right now and Instagram, and all of that stuff. Eventually, most people will be able to create. So whatever is like really exclusive and hard to do right now, give it a few years, it probably won't be that hard to do. Alright, so going in here again with the damn standard brush, doing a lot more of these little different types of breakups. Environment sculpting is its own thing. There's different ways to go about it. One way that you can do is, if you prefer to smooth a lot of this stuff out and only focus on the big shapes, then come in later to do the texture, you can do the texture through surface noise. Divyang Art saying, what is that thing? So that thing is an environment for these characters to stand up on. So you can kind of drop them in place, rotate them around. You can see how they're going to basically be in place. I actually might have this one on the ground here in the front, where I may add a bit more grass and stuff to the ground. Okay, so what I was getting at was surface noise. So I can go to my subtool under, I believe it's under here somewhere, surface, there it is. So geometry tool surface, and you can enable noise, and you can enable, let's see, close out of this, light box, noise makers, and find different types of noise. So there's various different types of scratches and noise. So there's one, cracks, and you can apply that to mesh. And you can see how it actually affects the mesh. So that's really dope. And you can also add more. So you can layer multiple types of noise on top of each other. So I'll hide that. And there's the different types of crackling. And you can see how it really breaks that geometry down. Kind of better than it would be if you did it by hand. It's kind of just like, you know, procedural. Sometimes procedural stuff is better. So when I apply this to mesh in this way, it kind of balloons my mesh out, which is not what I want. So I'm going to adjust the strength. Instead of negative, I might say positive. See what that does. Okay. Click apply and see what that does. And then you can see kind of ate into my mesh, which is what I wanted. And so very quickly I've generated a lot more realistic looking rock structure than if I would have done it all by hand. Just kind of focused on the big shapes and got me there. Creative World's asking, are you going to sell this piece or to the public? I don't know. We'll see. I don't think the public is interested in buying all these complex dioramas as much. But the toys they can afford. All right, so Akhenaten Ramsey's on YouTube saying, is there a way to start making toys on the small scale without needing to outsource it to China? Resin casting, for example. So I'd recommend this heavily as the way to start. Just get your own 3D printer, just make a few toys and just try to sell the 3D prints. And only if they sell should you try to go the mass manufacturing route, because you really need to put it in front of the public. Don't put it in front of your friends, your family. Your mom is always going to love everything you do. Put it in front of a public. So with Fungisaurs, we put it in front of a whole bunch of people at the DesignerCon Expo here in Pasadena. Now it's in Anaheim. And I had just done a ton of 3D prints, and I just put all the 3D prints out just to see how people liked it. You could go the resin casting route, and it's cheaper to produce, like up to 50 toys that way. But I didn't paint any of them because painting would have been way too complex. I just sold unpainted toys, and we pretty much sold out of them. So that's what you need to do, is to just check, hey, are these appealing? Will people actually get them? And then think about mass producing. Platforms and companies, that I don't know. Oh wait, this is a different question. Well, platforms and companies for mass producing your toys, not going to China, that's tough because everywhere requires you to make like 700 to 2,000 toys minimum. But there is this one company you can check out, Happy Worker. They make they're a custom toy manufacturer, so they work with you to come up with your designs and sculpts and make all these toys. So there's one, Happy Worker. There's another one called, I think, Pretty in Plastic. They're based in LA. They're a designer's toy studio. They can do the full fabrication and everything. So there's something them working with Nicki Minaj, I guess. So they've got the stuff to make ZBrush sculpts into all these toys, and color printers and all, and yeah, another company to check out. Akhenaten saying, are 3D printed resins toxic for kids? Depends. I wouldn't say that you could sell them to 3-year-olds to 10-year-olds. Really, this is for more adult collectors or kids above 12 years of age that won't put it in their mouth, because you do run the risk of being sued if you're putting out a product without the proper labeling and warnings and stuff for kids. So Life Size Dolls is asking if I know any platforms that can turn a ZBrush creation into a graphic novel. Now, graphic novel is a great way to go for 3D artwork too, but there's no platform that I'm aware of that does that for you. Maybe there is. but it's something probably you're going to have to do yourself, is look into a lot of graphic novels, learn about that business, and then make your own. Alright, so I think this gives me enough space to put my characters on. Maybe. I'm going to keep at this for a little bit, make sure I have enough space to do what I need. Like I can add another one right there. I want to make sure this looks good from, like, you know, all angles, so it's not just from the front. I'm keeping this pretty easy to topologize because I'm going to need to make a 3D model out of this stuff that is Sketchfab ready, so I'm not going with any crazy overhangs or complex model choices. But I do want it really nice and varied. We can also do a color pass. So thinking about the kinds of colors we want on this. Let me save again. Grim Reaper on Twitch sent a link. Let's take a look at what this is. So this is the best filament extruders to build or buy. So what these do, I believe, is make your own filament. Yes. Let's see. You don't have to trash your old or failed prints. Use them to create new filament. We list the 6 best filament extruders you can build or buy. So they convert shredded plastic into filament. You know, honestly, I'd prefer to use a service to do this because just the amount of toxic, you know, materials this would create trying to do this at home or in an office isn't feasible to me. But it's awesome that, you know, there's so many different people that have come up with their own solutions for this. I've just been putting mine into bags and putting the problem off for future Aiman to solve. But it's great to see that all of this, you know, exists, these resources. So here you can buy this Philobot EX2. This looks the most professional. Let's see. It's about $3 grand to make your own filaments from your, or recycle your filaments. Entry-level extrusion system. That's good. You need something really simple. Thank you for sending that. This is really cool. I think I'm going to save this link and revisit it soon. Let's see. I watched a bunch of those reviews on YouTube and none of them worked that well. See, that's my thing, is that I don't know if they will give me what the quality that I want. Especially with filament, like, I'd be happy to repurpose that support material and then failed prints into something else and keep buying new good filament from, you know, manufacturers that work on that. But I don't mind remixing it into something else that's usable. Alex Dunlop saying, how is it possible to paint reflection and glossiness map in ZBrush in case we want to use V-Ray Max for final rendering? Okay, so maps. I can do a little bit of talking about maps because that's what I'm going to do next with this model. Is I'll do a little bit of coloring and then we can make a texture map. So I'm going to keep MRGB on, turning Z-Add, Z-Sub off. Color spray with this random brush alpha. Let's pick something a bit more organic. And standard brush. Let's pick a color or a texture. See, there's all these different textures. I think I'll just use no textures. I'll just pick a color. So let's pick something, you know, greenish first. And I can drop it on. You can adjust the RGB intensity. Just drop a little bit of green here and there. Let's pick a little bit of brown now. And I can add a bit of brown. Maybe we can make it a bit reddish too, like little red rocks. I don't know. Red, it's not really fitting well with what I've got going on. But I can add it here or there, just to add little hints, you know. Shadows should be a bit bluer, so you want to make them darker or feel darker. You can add blue. So I'm going to do that for kind of the bottom and the sides. And to me, that's already feeling more, you know, just better. Now, another thing you can do for coloring is color the cavities and just the very top surfaces. So I'm going to go to masking on here under my tool palette, and then we'll turn these into maps. See, so I'll go under poly paint. No, it's under masking somewhere. Here you go, masking. And you can do mask by cavity and mask by occlusion. So let's mask by cavity first. And what this does is it masks only the cavities. So I can then come to, you know, just a little bit of white or something. With a low RGB intensity, I can fill object. And it'll brighten it up. So whereas before, it was more like, crud, too far. So basically brightening up the parts that we want to be brighter. Let's mask by cavity again. I'll invert and I'll darken those parts. So I'll add a bit of black to those. And now you can see, like, very quickly I've got a really complex rock texture, rock feel. Gonna add a few more kinks just so it feels multi-layered and leveled. And then I might actually end up changing the texture a bit more again once I have more characters in here. Okay. All right, that's plenty. Keep going forever, but I think this gets the point across of, you know, a bunch of rocks that these characters would be sitting on. Something that would look nice in an aquarium or terrarium, you know, with animals. Save that. Okay. Questions. Is there a way to add different surface noise in a poly group? Yeah, probably. Just hide the rest of your poly groups, and then you should be able to apply surface noise only on what's visible. It is a good option, Grim Reaper, for you know, leftover supports from prints to kind of reuse them somehow. But it's just, I know what I'm capable of, and I've learned as I get older to delegate. Like, I don't know if I want to do everything by myself. If I find a good service, that's what I'd use for something like that. All right, Admiral Supernova, currently learning to sculpt, and I have a question. How much sculpting is by feel? I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is. The best tip I can give to new sculptors who are just getting the hang of things is to use reference. Use lots and lots of reference. These rocks that I'm sculpting them based on reference that I've got right here to my left, physical rocks. And I'll pull up reference on my other monitor. You won't get better and you won't get a feel for sculpting until you do a lot of sculpting and have a lot of reference. Okay, cool. So earlier question, how is it possible to paint reflection and glossiness map in ZBrush? So that's a really specific question, but what I can show you is how to start that process even. I'm going to duplicate this environment, and I'm going to maybe Dynamesh it first. Let's start there. Take the resolution up to 200. Dynamesh. So it's not that many polys, still relatively small. 563,000 polys here. Let's take it to 1,000. And that takes it up to Adrian Weeder on Facebook saying you are only using ZBrush at this moment, but not generally speaking. I'll use whatever programs I need to. Photoshop, Maya, Modo, Cinema 4D in the past, Max a little bit here and there. I used Blender before. Yeesh, too much resolution. After Effects, Substance Painter. I'm not really doing the Substance Painter level of detailing. I just want to make, add enough detail on there. But if you really want to add a ton of detail, you need to actually get in there and add it in. So there. I'll divide it so that it's about 2 million polys. And then I can come in and even add finer details. So increase the RGB intensity, set this to be like a brownish material. Switch off of my brush alpha to be a different type of alpha. Let's say, let's go with the Crackler. Nah, I think I want just like a really basic color so I can come in and do the detailing. So let's maybe pick a texture. That one. A bit more broken apart. And so you can see now if I zoom in, I can really paint a lot more. And I can divide this even further. Just want to hit it in different places with a bit of texture, just so we have detail if someone looks closer. Though I doubt they will, but want to create the best map I can quickly. Just hitting this thing with a bit of texture everywhere. And then we'll start UV mapping it and make some maps. Okay, so I like the way this is looking. I'm going to save. I'm going to duplicate it again. I just like to have duplicates of my mesh sometimes. I'll delete the higher for now because I just want to create my base mesh with this, and right now you can see it's 563,000 polys is way too much, so I need to Z-remesh this. So let's make the target poly count 1, adapt, and click Z-remesh. Admiral Supernova is saying currently doing the Dragon Slayer project from Beginners Guild. That's cool. Yeah, you definitely want to make fun stuff when you're starting because you want to get into this, Don't make rocks when you're starting. Make a dragon. Grim Reaper and saying in my mold making video, you said that silicone can't be painted on if you use it to create a posable figure. Are there any alternative materials that can be used, such as figures that can be painted? Yeah, foam. So I learned this very recently, but a lot of stop motion figures that are animated and like movable are made with high density foam that is flexible. So they don't use silicone much anymore because foam can be painted on. So yeah, look into stop motion foams. All right, so here is the mesh that was generated from Z-Remesher. It's about 3,000 polys, and it's dope. Like, it works. It's got all the detail that I would want and need. And this is something that I can now UV map and project all of my detail onto from my other mesh. So something like this will end up eventually looking like that. And how do you do that? Can you do that in ZBrush? Yeah, you can pretty much do everything you want to in ZBrush for this part. There's other software too, but I'm just going to generate kind of an auto UV map and see. I'm going to duplicate this, save the scene, again. And what I want to do is kind of do an auto UV. So I might not even do this in the scene. I might work on a clone. So there's a plugin here called UV Master. And we need to UV this thing. So I'm going to go to UV Master and enable control painting. What this does is let me choose what parts of my model will be, let's see, enable control painting, and I can choose to protect, attract the seams. So in this case, I don't want any seams here or here or here. Anywhere that's like visible in the front, I don't want seams. I don't mind having seams in the back. So let's switch to attract, and we can say, yeah, sure, have the seams like right there or there. Don't really care about the bottom, so I can say you can have the seams all the way across the edge if you'd like. Leave that there. So hopefully this is where ZBrush will put the seams and there won't be any unnecessary ones. Alright, so I think ZBrush should be able to do a good job just like this, but there's one way to find out. So, let's see, did I get the top? I did. So now I'm going to go to Unwrap. And once it's done the unwrapping, now you can see what it's done. You can actually flatten this. So there's the UV map that was generated from my quick painting of, put the seams here, don't put the seams there. So I'm going to unflatten. And now this is UV'd. So if I go to my texture, I can do new from UV check and see there's the texture. It's been UV'd. So I can make this map a bit stronger or better, but I think this is good enough for my purposes. I'm going to now project the detail from this higher res onto the lower res and then have that be the base of my textures. Grim Reaper saying I can never figure out UV Master, that's why I'm hoping Peel UV will be ready soon. Yeah, Peel UV looks dope, especially for characters, so I'm excited about that. Okay, so you can see like a lot of the texture that I was working on was coming from the material, the gray material that I was using. So now when I switch to this white material, it isn't that cool looking. But that's fine, we can adjust the textures once we have them. What we want to do is take this one that has the UVs. See, there's the UVs. We want to take this one and project all of our new stuff onto there. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to go to my geometry, divide, divide. Let's just start with 50,000 polys. I'll turn on this mesh, which is the other one. You can kind of put it right on top of it if you want to be able to keep track. And we're going to project. So I'm going to go to my Z-add, and I'll click Project All. I'm going to save before I do this, because sometimes this causes ZBrush to crash. But I'm only doing it with 50,000 poly, so I think it'll work. And MRGB is on as well. Z-add's on, Project. So what this has done is it's projecting from the other mesh onto the new one. And if it's giving you any issues, you can smooth those out right here, right now, and reproject, you know? Adjust the project strength. And first do this a few times just at like, you know, super low level. Like don't do this with like 100 million polys to start. Turn that back on. Adjust the project distance and strength. Great. Then I'm going to duplicate it, or no, divide it again because it's 50,000 polys. Let's take it up to 200,000 polys, and I'll do a project again. And now I should be getting more detail. So you can see, already getting a lot more detail. I'm just going to tap it with smooth here and there to make sure that there's no weird interpenetration, because this mesh does have a lot of rocks on it. This is rock and mesh. Okay, cool. Now if we look a little bit closer though, there's still more detail here than there is here. And that's simply because it's got more polys. So again, I'm going to divide again. Tap it with smooth. So you go to geometry, divide. One more time should take it up to 800,000 polys. Another time should take it up to 3 million polys. So now, with 3 million polys, I should be able to get all that detail. Caitlin Sculpt saying there are silicone paints, but they're pretty expensive. Agreed, and there's silicone dyes. What silicone dyes do is basically you add a few drops and you can color your silicone all like a light brown, beige, or like skin color, or green, whatever color you want. But it's not for like hand painting. David Bro Jr. on YouTube, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again at the Zbrush Summit. Thanks for stopping by my table at Lightbox. Yeah, this is a CPU killer, right? You probably are hearing me kind of get distorted as this thinks about what to do. Good time to stretch. All right, so all that detail has been projected. So if we come and take a closer look, there's the original mesh, and there's my new mesh. So there's like, all the detail has been captured now. All right, so 3 million polys is a lot, but you know, if we go all the way down to 1, this mesh only has 3,000 polys. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I'm going to save, and let's start generating some of our texture maps. So I'll go to my geometry, take it all the way up to the full highest resolution, and say texture now, new from poly paint. And there's the poly paint information all on my texture map. I can clone this. I believe I have to, no, I'm not flipping it vertically because I'm not taking it to Maya. And let's export this out into environment 1 Photoshop file. I could have sworn I was working this on the desktop, but it doesn't see it on my desktop. That's strange. Oh, Sketchfab, that's what it's called. Sketchfab Mushrooms Environment 1. Alright, so here's the diffuse map that was generated out of Photoshop. And I can actually put some rock images on top of this to really make that texture feel real. So let's go to Google. Let's Google some rock images. Life Size Doll saying, how are you turning your characters into augmented reality? It's complicated. Like from ZBrush sculpts, I then take them into Maya and then create this mesh that has a good game resolution, and then I rig it all, or this was rigged by a friend of mine. And then once you have the rigs, then you can do stuff with them, you know. And then once you've got the animations, then you drop them in. It's a lot more involved that I can get into right now. David Bro's asking, is this for a Fungisaur's diorama or playset? Yeah, kind of is. So I want to do a virtual playset, kind of something you can see in Sketchfab, where all the characters will be kind of hanging out around it, and you can see them kind of animated and moving, and see the rocks and all. So yeah, that's what I'm developing right now. I don't know if I'll 3D print this one. This might only be for virtual, because I already have a physical version of this. Life Size Doll, do I have digital characters on my Shopify store? I do not yet. I'm not selling the digital files for Fungisaurs because we're still planning on developing an IP and like our own animated series for them, so I don't want to make them open source. Alright, so as I was going to do is Google rock texture. Let's see if I can find some nice rocks. See, this is some cliffs. This one's dope, but then again, a lot of these rock textures are like very, I'm gonna have to set this to be full size, large. So this is nice, like simple gray rock texture. This other one has a mossy feel to it, which I can try playing with a bit of both. Let's get this one. I can save image as gray rock 1. Mossy rock 1. Some more gray rocks. This one's cool. It's got like various types of color in it, but it is watermarked, which I don't like. This one's got a lot of like nice, just simple, smooth elements. So I'm going to save image as smooth rock 1. This one's limestone. I mean, really, there's all sorts of different types of rocks, and there's a million different ways you can make this look. I think that should give me enough elements to play with. Ooh, that would be dope though. Like adding a little bit of like Antelope Canyon kind of texture. I don't want to overdo it. Let's just see what I can do with the ones that I've already got. So I'll go to import, or maybe I'll just open it here. Drag and drop it into place. Scale it up. Scale the next one. Scale that up. This one looks like it was actually created in Substance. Scale that up. I'm going to go over to here. Select this side, which is kind of the... I'll basically select all the parts that are not part of this mesh, and I'll invert my selection. And I'll create a mask for these guys up here. And then I can change the, mode that it's being applied onto it. So I can use this as an overlay, have it be super subtle if I want. And you can see how it's adding a little bit more on top of my existing rock texture. Color burn instead. I like that. That adds a lot. This one, let's just say, see what overlay does. Yeah, I think overlay is probably good for this one. Don't want to overdo it either. Get it too contrasty. Kind of like what color burn does there too. Sometimes I lose my words. It happens to the best of us. I kind of like just making it darker because overall that's what's helping me make it feel like rock. Okay, so that's that. Let's save this. We'll save the texture again here as a JPEG. Rock diffuse 1. And I believe this is a pretty small image size. Yeah, 2K square. Not going for any really complex, big 4K textures. All right, so we'll import the texture into here. So we'll click Import, Rock Diffuse 1. Then we'll go over to our rock texture map and switch the texture to that one. And there we go. That's our new and improved rock that was textured through a combination of Photoshop and found images online. So I'm pretty stoked with that. That looks good, but the question was, how do you create different types of maps? We don't need to have just the diffuse. We may want a specular map or a reflection map, things like that. Grim Reaper saying that, you know, the most difficult rock texture to find? It is Pentelic Marble, pure white marble used in ancient Greece. Yeah, I bet that's difficult. Although, you know what I did here is that white marble that we see in Greece all the time, that we think all the statues were white and so classy, the Greeks painted over all of that. So it was likely just started in marble and then painted to look realistic. All acrylic and kind of cheesy. Okay, so how do we get more different types of maps now? Well, I think the easiest way to do it is to have different types of material. So let's switch this to a different type of material and see a reflection material. You know, the reflection cranks up all the way. So what I may want to do is have this be generated as part of my map. So there's a few different ways to capture materials into texture. I don't really use it very often, so that might be something I show on a future stream. But if you wanted to start off with something gold, you can capture this matte cap as your base texture. Or wood, something like that. That might be dope. And then build your map just like you did with the others that I've shown you already. I like to work mostly with Skin Shade 4 and have my texture on. And so that's kind of the final rock for this diorama. I'll probably end up adding like grass and like more greenery around this stuff so that when my characters are in place, they'll, you know, feel like they're part of like this living, breathing world. So that's pretty much it for this stream today, dudes and gals. Thank you for joining. I'm going to start wrapping up now. Hopefully this was useful for you to see kind of how I go about putting some of the stuff together. Toss this up there. Once again, if you want to follow my stuff and Fungisaurs, you can follow @Fungisaurs on Instagram and see all of these Fungisaur travel photos, as well as keep track of the expos that we're hitting in our animation and pitch development. So that's Fungisaurs on Instagram. My work is on Aiman3D.com. Let's see. You can check out previous streams on Pixelogic, Zbrush Live, Aiman Akhtar. You can see all the articulation stuff, masks, and different types of projects that I do that involve 3D printing. Let's see, I had more stuff on here, didn't I? If you're interested in learning about 3D printing and taking my class, for the low, low price of $200, you can get 8 weeks worth of lectures and lessons on how to make jewelry, miniatures, multi-piece prints, wearables, everything. So that's Mold 3D Academy, 3D printing for ZBrush artists. And my articulation brush is just Gumroad L Keys Art. So I'll share that as well. If you're interested in articulation, check that out, download it to support me, and then, yeah, play with it. enjoy some ZBrushing. Lastly, I will be at the Zbrush Summit. So no more streams until the summit. I'll probably start streaming again in October. So hopefully I'll see you all there, and we get to hang out in person. So I'll share the articulation brush link there as well, and my class for any of you that are interested. And yeah,